Good morning, and here we are again on a gorgeous morning. It is quite lovely out there, quite beautiful. Coming in at 6:30 this morning on the Red Devil was a pleasure. It's still slightly parky, but I mean at 6:30 you expect that. It is nice and fresh and full, gave me full of the joys of spring. And I thought we would use our second camera this morning so that you can get a little bit better perspective of what goes on in the Black Horse. Anyway, uh, we've got a few things for you this morning. Prior to John Henty, and I hope that Philip Meredith will join us as he often does for a chat. But as usual, we have to go and see what on earth is going on in the world, because I must say I get dispirited at what our leaders get up to, and what, for that matter, all those people who there's
Morning.
a supervisor, building supervisor, Ida. Morning, Ida.
Morning.
Yeah, I'm not alone today. And I, for the life of me, it is difficult to know what's going on with the world. There seems to be no discipline at any level of society, none whatsoever, except on the internet, where if you as much as break wind, is somebody is ready to either criticize you or tell you that you've broken some copyright or whatever. It's all a bit nonsensical, just absolutely stupid. But there we are, that's the world that we created. And it's the world that we have to live with, I suppose. All I can tell you is, and perhaps you can tell from the flash in my eye, is that I'm feeling a little better this morning. I've been through a rough period with my Parkinson's, but today I'm far from well, but I'm much better than I have been. And I hope I can reflect that in being bouncy. Whee! There we go. There we are. Okay. Well, first of all, it's always good is never mind the weather as long as we're together. Or let's reverse that. As long as we're together, never mind the weather. But we can mind it today and tomorrow and Saturday and most of Sunday. Today, we're going to hit a high of 17, which isn't bad for this time of the year. It's going to be sunny and light winds. The reason that I'm pointing in the direction that I am is because the sun, when it shines, floods in to the bow window of the Black Horse and dazzles me. Woo! Dazzle, dazzle, dazzle. So I have to face the opposite way, looking onto Western Road with the traffic going to work. Even the cars have got a bounce in their step this morning. Certainly the buses have. They bounce along. And the Red Devil, boy, did it bounce this morning. Whee! Tomorrow, the end of the week, 21 degrees and sunny all day. Wow, 21 degrees. As oh, we we've lost our paper. There we go. 21 degrees, and on Saturday it is going to be 21 degrees and sunny all day. Sunday, 21 degrees, but we'll have some cloud back, scattered cloud. but still a half decent day. And on Monday, it's the return of the rain. Return of the pouring rain, I'm afraid. But let's enjoy, particularly from noon today, a cloudless sky. Ooh, and the chance of rain, 0. 0, 0, 0 chance of rain. Wind, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 5, 4, 3. So, a light wind. Yes, indeed. So we're in a pretty good territory at the moment as far as the weather is concerned. Can you see I've already got a tan? Yes. It's not makeup. No. Not makeup at all. Mind you, in the old days, when I worked for Reuters, I used to have to carry a little pack of makeup. I forget what it was called now. It was number something, number 7, number 8, number 9. Sorry? Number seven. There you go. You see, I've got the experts around me. Number 7 to daub on. And I used to say, I was in one of the few people who could actually go to work, get makeup on his collar, and go home and look his wife in the eye and say, "No, dear, I did not fondle or have anything to do with a lady." And I was telling the truth. No such luck today. Can't find a lady other than to make makeup. Right, let's go to the newspaper, shall we? Before I get too carried away. Newspaper headlines: Starmer splits party and no royal reunion. Well, we knew that there was not going to be a royal reunion. That's yesterday's news. The Times: Starmer splits the party by accepting the Tory defector. And they are silly, aren't they? They do get themselves knickers into a twist. There's the defection from the Conservatives to Labour of Dover MP Natalie Elphicke. The Times says Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has split his party by accepting the former Tory. Why don't they look back in history, for God's sake? I mean, Churchill crossed the House a couple of times, and he ended up being a supremo, absolute supremo. Will this woman end up being a supremo? I don't think so. I think she's probably slit her throat. She might win the next election. Oh, lovely. Thank you. She might win the next election, but that's as far as she'll go. Storm in a teacup. If I was the Labour people, I would zip my lips so that it looks as if there is party unity, because otherwise they're going to unsettle what seems to be a foregone conclusion in terms of the polls. But if Labour shows itself to be the old Labour, can't agree, it is dominated by dogma, then that will seep through to the electorate. And they will not seize power when they've got the best chance that they've had in a couple of decades. 3 decades, in fact. How silly can they be? Well, there we go. Now, that's a silly thing to say, actually. All politicians are as thick as 2 short planks. They really are. They live in their own little world. They don't understand the rest of us. They really so tied up in what they think suits them. And of course they do. They've got free bars, they've got subsidized food, subsidized travel, subsidized housing, subsidized bird baths, you name it. Why would they know what it's like? to look at your bank account and see that you've got £1 left before payday. They don't. And as a consequence, they don't legislate that way. And then they'll put their hands to their brow. Oh, hands to brow. We've got such great affairs of state. We deserve all these things. BS. Get with it. Let's see MPs riding to work on a bicycle. Walking, even. Let's see cabinet ministers who know what it's like to walk the pavements. Ooh, security. If we just got used to them, they couldn't bump everybody off. We've got a real rethink that's needed. But do we hear that from the various parties at any level? No. I mean, we had the mayor on. Seemed to be a nice chap, Matthew Bird. We've had the Liberal Democrat, James Mac. His name just escapes me. That's the trouble with getting as old as I am, of course, is that you have little lapses of memory. But they're all very decent people, very nice people. Is that what we want as leaders? No. We want people who understand what on earth it is to be ordinary and to have the courage of their convictions and to tell their colleagues, this is the way that we've got to start to think. Do we get it? No. James McCleary is what I was thinking of. And I wasn't prompted. It's just Stuart Dolby told me that he's been given a clinical term for it. It takes a little while, a few seconds, for your brain to click in and think of the things that you wanted to think about. So there we go. Anyway, that's what our modern politicians are all about. And I mean, listen to the stuff that really. The Guardian. Scientists despair amid the forecast of at least a 2.5 centigrade temperature rise. Whoa. Yes, the other story about Keir Starmer and the lady conservative is also on the front page, but the main headline is scientists despair. I mean, forecast of at least a 2.5 degree centigrade temperature rise.
Or a raccoon. I might have been a raccoon in the previous.
All I think of is what you think of. A 2.5 degree rise. Oh, what it means is I can sit in the garden and get a suntan. But of course, it's more than that. An image of Sakira and Miss Elphick features on the front of The Guardian, which also reports that the Labour leader is facing anger from within his party after welcoming Miss Elphick. Meanwhile, the paper headlines on a survey it has carried out, which found that hundreds of the world's leading scientists expect global temperatures to rise to at least by at least 2.5 centigrade, that's 4.5 degrees Fahrenheit, above pre-industrial levels this century, with catastrophic consequences for humanity. Oh dear. Well, I must confess, I've seen the evidence of high temperature changes, and that was before we got smokestacks. If you fly over the Sahara, which I've been privileged to do 3 times now,
go and meet Paul. So it'll be about lunchtime. Is that right, Vic?
You can see
Well, after lunchtime.
the gullies of rivers
and
lakes and watercourses,
okay, can you do it
which have all dried out and created the Sahara Desert. You can see it. It's quite clear. It was verdant.
It's hot out there, so don't let them overdress it.
And of course, my famous quote is, I once asked one of my history professors, where did Hadrian get his elephants from? Which the somewhat scornful reply was, because North Africa was verdant, it was jungle. They had plenty of elephants. And that wasn't so long ago. That was Hannibal attacked ancient Rome using elephants as tanks. So I understand when they're talking about catastrophic consequences. If they're right, it could easily be right. It has nothing to do with whether cows are flatulent or cars are pumping out exhausts, or for that matter, factories in China are being built at one every 24 hours, we're told. It's all going to happen anyway. The Daily Express. Has there ever been a more shameless betrayal? Oh, what's that all about? The Express says a Tory turncoat, Natalie Elphicke, and Keir Starmer have faced outrage over the shameless political pact. Oh dear, all it's done is upset the apple cart for them. They are reaping what they sowed. The Eye. The banner headline is Summer of Mayhem Forecast at UK airports. Right? But interest rate cut can't save Sunak amid defection row. That's the Eye. All this is speculation, of course, is what's going to happen. But the Eye reports on Miss Elphicke's move to Labour, but takes a slightly different approach, quoting a pollster saying, even an interest rate cut can't save Sunak. The paper headlines on expectations that the Bank of England will hold interest rates at 5.25% on Thursday, and any cut is unlikely until August. Then I agree. Make no difference. The Telegraph has got a banner headline, the era of cheap food is over. Waitrose chief James Bailey on how the 21st century has changed farming, or is changing farming, has changed farming. However, the Telegraph's main headline is Cameron, the EU must be tougher on Russia. Well, David has hardly been the face of firmness. It's all very well for him now that he's Lord Cameron and got a cabinet post to start to talk that way, but he hasn't behaved that way in the past. So the Telegraph leads with Lord Cameron calling on the EU to be tougher on Russia. Oh yeah, don't do as we do as we say. It also has a story on the University of Cambridge vowing not to move pro-Palestinian protesters from a college lawn. Huh. The leaders are as daft as the students. However, that's easy. Have the courage of your convictions and say to the government, any monies that you are going to send us, please take back or stall or freeze. Ha ha ha. Right. When payday comes, we'll see just how their resolve is. There's another. I don't I don't disapprove of certain privileges, and the privileges enjoyed by academics are fine with me, as long as they understand that it doesn't give them carte blanche to start telling the rest of us what to do. And when we've got an attack on democracy, as we have with these students and with the Arab Muslim councillors, then I do object. Is why on earth, is people go onto the hustings and tell us what they're going to do, and the moment they actually get elected or appointed, is they start to do something else, and that is not good enough. You want to do something else, resign your post and go onto the hustings, not onto a university lawn, sitting there waving your banners, you useless bloody tits, and 9 times out of 10 you turn out to be useless tits as well. It's sheer waste of money for most of you. Yes, of course, universities play a useful role, but when they're playing the role, not when they are veering into the political field. Because I can remember what I thought when I was 20 and 21. Bye, darling. Bye. Ada has left the building. I was so naive, but full of what I believed and what I thought. So naive. And I was a slow starter. I was 21 while I was still being naive. So can you imagine what these children of 18, 19 are? And yet here they want us to listen to them. Yeah, let's listen. But let's listen on the debating chamber. Not blind is this is what we believe right now, and to hell with it as we mature. It's a nonsense. Daily Mail. Here we go, actually. After dozens of pro-Gaza candidates elected in local polls, Tory chairman accuses Starmer of embracing a threat to democracy. Labour willing to pander to sectarianism. That's the charge. Is that true? No, but I think that Labour had better start to say whether what its reasoning is. The Mail quotes Tory chairman Richard Holden accusing Labour of exploiting the Middle East conflict to win votes. There's also a banner headline, Royal Rift, just 2 miles away from each other, but a world apart. And that's King Charles and Prince Harry. The Mirror. Lorraine, I'm going to be a gran soon. I'm so excited. No royal reunion. Worlds apart. But just 2 miles separate King Charles and Prince Harry. Several of Thursday's front pages carry photos of King Charles and Prince Harry. The Mirror says the pair are worlds apart after father and son did not meet despite being just 2 miles away from each other in London. Now, the fact is, he is our leader. That's the reason that he's there, not because of the divine right of kings. In other words, God meant him to be, or because of his royal heritage, his royal birth, but because a constitutional monarchy needs a monarch. And he is our monarch. And he should behave like our monarch. And much as his son may have acted in a distasteful manner and been not very nice to Queen Camilla, who actually in herself was not very nice to Diana. They are all full of human emotions, but then they don't want to behave like humans. And they don't want to behave with that sense of duty which signaled the difference between the Queen and other global leaders. My, how we miss her sense of duty. Charles should bury the hatchet for the sake of unity in a very uncertain world where enemies of the state are looking at any weakness. You know, what my belief is that we have handed over far too much to computers. There we are. Nobody wants to listen to me at the moment. Ha! There's more and more evidence to suggest that perhaps I'm right. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. You can't get to see a doctor because of a computer. And actually, the NHS is just it goes from one disaster to another. It's got a new system, yet another new system, and the first new system was the hub, which sends you a reminder about your appointment 2 days after it was supposed to have taken place. Now I forget what it's called. Amadeus, or something of the sort, which is making it that much easier to get an appointment. Well, I got totally lost in trying to get an appointment. I had to go to what they call the scheme manager in my complex and ask her to do it. And she is pretty savvy as far as computers are concerned. Even she had problems before eventually she got them onto a system where they could phone back. Once I started to talk to the receptionist, she was charming and helpful. But Jesus, I could have waited 10 years to get through to the receptionist. When will they learn? It's not just the NHS, it's not just the doctors and nurses, and for that matter, receptionists. It's everybody, the banks, the utility companies, the phone company. I keep pointing out to them. We changed the date of a direct debit to pay my phone bill. It's supposed to be paid 2 days later. I still get, we're going to cut you off if you don't pay by a certain date. It's there in their system. It's a direct debit. Their system. I hate direct debits. I wouldn't use one if I didn't have to. But can they handle it? No. Why? Because they haven't got any humans that either understand their own systems or they haven't got enough humans to take control from the computers. It's all crazy. It's all absolutely stark, staring mad. Anyway, all that because of Prince Harry and Charles. The Financial Times. Pandemic era winners suffer 1.5 trillion fall in value as lockdown trends fade. What it says is the FT reports on how 50 business winners from the pandemic, in other words, those people that actually benefited and boomed from pandemic business, are now, including things like Zoom and Peloton, have suffered a 1.5 trillion fall in value as lockdown trends fade. In other words, lockdown is becoming a memory, and some of the things that we found so useful during lockdown aren't useful anymore, and so we're turning away from them and going elsewhere, and that decreases their value. Metro. A baby born deaf cured in the UK is a world first. Well, that's great. Here's to you, Opal. The Metro reports on a girl born completely deaf who can now hear after receiving world-leading gene therapy. Now, there we are with something that is useful, but I suspect that a computer only partly helped the treatment, that there were humans involved, and so we've seen some success. A combination of computers and humans, yes. Throwing stuff over totally to computers, no. It's the day of the Triffids. Computers are taking over. And my thesis is the Triffids, who dominated the world in the 1950s, are just waiting for man's weakness. And the weakness is being so dependent upon computers. And the Triffids will strike again. And these monsters will be back in charge. Isn't that a wonderful thesis? But you watch out. The Triffids are lurking in every hedgerow, every highway, byway, field, flower patch, just waiting to strike. Woof! And they're terrifying. Oh, a Triffid is terrifying, terrifying, terrifying. Believe me, we're giving in to them. They're almost there. Oh, well, that's, yes, oh, well. Why not? Why not? Give in. Or go home. Get your bird baths, MPs. Yes, okay. The Daily Star, that always gives us a bit of a laugh. The Star always gives us a bit of a laugh. Younger generation turn nose up at our put-downs. The end of the plonkers, plus the gits, the nitwits, the numpties, and even the Burks. Is the Star reports how some words are dying out with the younger generation, including plonkers and git. Oh dear. I can't say to somebody he's a plonker anymore because they won't understand what the hell I'm talking about. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. The world is going mad. The world is going mad. Right, let's just review what the headlines are all about with more detail. Natalie Elphick's defection from the Conservatives to Labour dominates the front pages. The Daily Express calls it shameless and suggests it shows Sir Keir Starmer lacks principle, while the Times says her admission has split Labour. The Daily Telegraph says Labour is facing a backlash from MPs who are uncomfortable about her previous policy positions in its editorial. The Sun says Labour has embraced an unprincipled opportunist who has trashed them for years and whose views change like the weather. Probably right. But that's all politicians are the same. I don't find her any different. Then I don't understand why the hoo-ha is as she walks across the House. Many persons have done it in the past, and she's a non-entity. I've never heard of her before. In fact, I suspect that the only people that have are the people in Dover. But they make a big to-do about her views on this and her views on that. They don't get widespread reporting. So how the hell would we know? In his parliamentary sketch in the Times, Tom Peck describes Natalie Elphick's appearance on the Labour benches at Prime Minister Questions as a fireworks display, adding somebody somewhere might find they've been badly burned. The Daily Mirror's editorial says, when the likes of Miss Elphick decide Britain will be better served with Keir Starmer in number 10, it shows how much Labour has changed. In the Daily Mail, Quinton Letts notes that he saw only 3 Labour MPs shake Miss Elphick's hand, but that she soaked up the sun rays of everyone's attention before leaving the chamber, shoulder to shoulder with Labour's leader, as they shared an awkward silence. The Guardian has conducted a poll of hundreds of climate experts who say they expect global temperatures to rise by at least 2.5% this century. Many predict what the paper describes as a dystopian, describe as a semi-dystopian era, including famines, conflicts, floods, wildfires, and storms of an intensity and frequency far beyond what's been seen before. I could not feel greater despair over the future, one scientist is quoted as saying. No, that's clever clogs. Why don't they do something about it? The Financial Times reports on the significant reduction of fortunes of companies that boomed in the pandemic era. It says conference call business Zoom and home exercise firm Peloton are among 50 companies whose shares have fallen by a combined £1.2 trillion since 2020. The Eye has assembled a panel of economic experts who predict the first interest rate cuts won't come until August at the earliest. The pollsters, Chris Hopkins from, I'll blank myself out here, from the firm Savanta, tells the paper that lower rates aren't likely to help Rishi Sunak's political outlook, because he says the Conservatives need a miracle and it's not going to come with a small interest rate cut. The Mirror is among the papers to pick up a survey that gives new insights into how the English language is changing. Adults aged under 28 were asked if they'd heard of a series of traditional British insults. More than half the respondents were unfamiliar with the words lummox, dampot, blighter, plonker, and ninny. The Mirror speculates they've been replaced by more contemporary insults, like saying someone has main character syndrome, meaning they want to be the center of attention, being basic, which is having mainstream tastes, or calling someone a Karen, an entitled moaner. Hey, way. Well, I'll be damned. Fancy that. I mean, the Jamaicans would say, which hasn't changed, is beating your gums. I've been beating my gums. Nobody has not been listening. It's that they've not understood a word I've said. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Dear, dear, dear. Well, there we are. That's an early morning look. It's now 40 minutes to 8. And it is a gorgeous morning out there. Just a gorgeous morning. And I'm going to take a sip of coffee, if you'll forgive me. I hear some noise behind me. Did anybody come in? No. I think somebody probably went out. Once again, I got the pub to myself. It's a wonderful feeling sitting in a pub surrounded by booze without any intention of, oh dear, I forgot to switch my phone off. That's one of the sacred cows of BBC. I have no idea who that is. We can call them back later. And oops. I can hear. I think we've got a ghost. Oh, that's wonderful when you've got a ghost. Never mind. Yes. Let's. We got John Henty, by the way, at 10 o'clock. That's always a good bit of rollicking fun. As we change our nature totally from getting excited about what the politicians are up to looking back to things like Itmar, Dad's Army, Max Miller, you name it. You name it. And he's got it. That's at 10 o'clock. At the moment, it's 9:15. Is it? Yes, it's 8:42. It's 8:42. Now, perhaps you may wonder what we get up to when we're not actually in front of the camera. And I came across one thing that we did, and this was just before the pandemic. If I can find it. Oh dear, I can't find it. I have no idea why these things change. Oh dear, never mind. It was rather fun. I think I can actually find it while we're doing other things. But to tell you, we live in a lovely town. We live in an absolutely lovely town, and if I can find and it is the transfer of these things is quite remarkable, because it doesn't transfer the way that you think. But anyway, that's my problem. Let us. I'm going to treat you to one of my tall tales. So here you go. Here is a tall tale from the World Traveller. Hee. I'm a very accomplished flyer now, but way back in the 60s, when commercial jets still were being tested on commercial flights, then getting on board an aircraft was something of a trauma. We sat there hoping like hell that the pilot knew what he was doing and that he would get us down at the other end. And of course the pilots didn't know what they were doing, and they did get us down at the other end. But then again, air crashes became front page news, and it seemed always
there was a crash just before I was supposed to fly. And so I wasn't the best flyer. Then one morning, somebody at the station, radio station I was working at, said, "Oh, someone's got to go up in a light aircraft and do traffic reports." Ha ha ha, I said, "They're not getting me into that." Guess who they came knocking on the door to? Hayes, you go out, you do the traffic reports. Well, I had no choice. I couldn't say no. I had to do it. So indeed I did. And away I went each morning, getting up at about 4:30, driving out to the airport and getting there about 5 o'clock, marching over to the far side of the airfield and getting into a Cessna 172, taking off, soaring above the city and passing on information about what was happening in the traffic. Wow. It took me 2 or 3 days to get used to the fact that this is what I was going to do twice a day. But then eventually I began to calm down and began to quite enjoy it. I enjoyed it so much, in fact, that I fell asleep one morning. I dozed, and the pilot said, "I think your station is calling you." And I heard the magic words, and now we're going up above the city, above the traffic, to see what was happening on the roads. So I opened my eyes, looked down, and immediately began to give a report. And the report was that there was a big jam of buses near the Oak Street Bridge, which went over the Fraser River. Wow! what a report. And then as we turned the aircraft and flew away, I realized that this was the bus terminal. I had just said that there were traffic jams of buses, and I'd been looking down at where the buses congregated before they set out on their morning routes. It's nothing like a great report. The pilot turned to me and he said, "You know, you've got this job licked. It's a bit boring, isn't it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, it is really. No, I mean, not much to say other than what's going on in the traffic. I try to brighten it up a little bit with a little quip here and there, but right, tomorrow morning," he said, "you get in the left-hand seat and I'll teach you to fly." And he did. And I was fortunate to have almost a year and a half of a flying experience. I logged 400 hours on the Cessna. I logged a couple of hours on a twin-engine aircraft and a couple of hours on other aircraft. I was the luckiest man in the world. And he put me into some pretty awful conditions. And we would fly up. I would give a report, and then we would do some what I know touch and goes. In other words, you land, you circle, you land, you circle, just to get some practice in. And we did. And one morning, a gust of wind took it, and I thought that the wing was going to be ripped off. Well, he grabbed the stick and managed to get us out of trouble. But it just shows the sort of thing that if you're going to be a professional pilot, that you have to put up with. So confident did we become on flying around together that he would set little tests, and he would say, "There are clouds on the North Shore over the mountains. Why don't we go over and see if we can break the wings of this aircraft?" Yes, let's do that. And we would deliberately fly into this mucky weather and get churned around and watch the wings, knowing full well that they wouldn't fall off. But daring. And it did turn out to be a lot of fun. I have to say, it turned out to be a lot of fun. A couple of other incidents. I used to take VIPs up in the afternoon and say, "Okay, here are some pollution issues," and so on and so forth. And one afternoon we got my good friend, but also a colleague, Mrs. Grace McCarthy, who was the Deputy Prime Minister at the time. And we got out onto the runway and away we went. And a jet had taken off just before us, and it was a fairly still evening. So you can't see them, but the whirls of air, of course, by the jet's wings are still there. And sure enough, we got 3 or 4 feet from the ground, and away it went. We damn near lost the cabinet minister. But the Deputy Prime Minister. Once again, he came to the rescue, flipped it over, and we managed to save the day. The other item that I think was worth reporting is that we flew backwards. Have you ever flown backwards? He said. And this young chap was about 21 or 22. He was a nice young fellow. We bought him a helmet and nicknamed him the Red Baron. And he was to die in tragic circumstances in a plane crash later on. But he was a nice young man and very helpful and lots of fun. And so we went, and he said, we need a marker. And the plane travels forward at about 100 miles or so an hour. Actually, it's a little over 72 miles for the takeoff speed. And he said that the wind this morning is particularly strong. So he put the nose of the aircraft into the strong wind, and we watched the bridge below. And although we were keeping airspeed, the plane started to travel backwards. So here we were in reverse, in a plane, in the sky, watching the bridge recede while the plane powered forward at the correct speed and the wind pushed us back. And that's the sort of nonsense that we would get up to. And there are lots of other stories I can tell you about my flying experience. But perhaps this last one will bring something of a smile to your lips. I was trying very hard to impress who later became my wife, my girlfriend at the time, Valerie, and I said, would you like to come flying, dear, and come out with me this afternoon, and we can go and we'll go and do some traffic reports, but we'll also take a look at the Vancouver from the air. How lovely. Yes, she said, that'd be super. Anyway, we got settled into the plane, I taxied out, checked with the tower, yes, we were all okay, we were about to take off, there's nothing in our way, rolled it out onto the runway and roared down the runway ready to take off. And the tower came on and said, MLA, MLA, which is the call letters of the aircraft. You're going down the runway the wrong way. Oh my goodness me. We had to screech to a halt and take off the right way. She still married me. Well, that's my flying experience. I suppose I should fly off now. Till the next story, the next tall tale. Tiddlywip.
Well, there you go. That's it is my flying experience. I must say that it was a wonderful, wonderful experience to be able to fly on a daily basis, sometimes 6 days a week, and it's a skill I put to the test on one occasion, because when I was at the BBC in Northern Ireland, one of the orchestra leaders, conductors, was a flyer, and as a little bit of an oddity, we flew out of Newton Ards Airport, which is on the Ards Peninsula, that little bit of elephant's trunk that you see on the map in Northern Ireland, just so that we could chat about music from the air, and it was an interesting angle, and we did a program on it. So I did put it to some use some years later, but since then I've left the flying to the experts, and I sit at the back of an airplane, the same as you do, and let the people up front who know what they're doing get on with it. I did, however, have more than a passing knowledge of the aircraft industry, because while I was in Northern Ireland, I performed their public relations duties for British Airways, and as a consequence was privy to going to Crane Bank, their training area and going into the simulator and flying a 747. And believe me, I tried to land the 747 and managed to park it right in the middle of the roof of Terminal 3. So flying a light aircraft and getting behind the controls of a 747 are two totally different things. And also, I showed yesterday the little snippet that we'd done on the Lewis Airport. And most people don't know that we've got an airport, but we have, and it sits located on the way to New Haven, and it's this side of Kingston and Eyford, and they invite the local villagers once every couple of years or so to have a barbecue and a look around, and occasionally a little flight in one of their aeroplanes. And on this particular occasion, they had the plane that was the sister aircraft, if it is a sister aircraft or a brother aircraft, a matched aircraft, to the aircraft that Amy Johnson flew around the world, and that appeared for a special occasion, a special preview, and a very popular addition it was to that particular afternoon's entertainment at the Kingston Aerodrome, Swamborough, actually. So that's my flying experience. Now, we've got John Henty at 10, but if Philip Meredith is floating around and actually watching, and he would be very welcome to tap in. But for the moment, I'm digging into the archives, because as we go into the summer, and we're looking at a rather more relaxed version of what the hell's going on, is I came across this Like Lewis, and I thought, yes, we do like Lewis, despite the fact that we're very critical of what happens here and what's happening and where the town is going, is we do like Lewis. And while we beat the hell out of one another in what should be done, what is being done, and so on, is let anybody on the outside criticize, and they're in trouble. So let's like Lewis. Well, there you are. That's just a little flip through Lewis, and as just a reminder of the richness and depth of our community. I'm the first to have a go at it. I really do. I am very, very critical of just about everything, but that's my nature, and that's my role. It doesn't mean to say that I don't appreciate everything that we have, everything that we do, and everything that goes on in this town. It's the politicians I can't stand. And actually, there are a few of them I quite like. So on this gorgeous morning, I'm just almost drunk, I suppose, and why not? Even though, as usual, the things that are supposed to happen don't happen. But let's, I do appreciate a decent bottle of wine. And recently, we've been getting plaudits for the wine we produce in this part of the world. And in fact, it is reported that the French and French vineyards are very busy buying up ground suitable for particularly sparkling wine. And that ground is becoming luxurious vineyards. When I first started to report on vineyards here, which was way back in 1990, they were few and far between. But there were dedicated people who held wine fairs and festivals and tried to let people know about what they were doing. I can remember one particularly as a chap called Carl Taylor, who took his sparkling wines to France and won a number of blind tastings. And that was, 35 years ago. Now, they are very sophisticated. But are we any more knowledgeable about wine than we were? I suspect not. I have a friend a late friend in Canada. God bless him. He's now at that great vineyard in the sky, a chap called Albert Gatens. And Albert was an aficionado. He spent his waking hours studying wines and actually making them, and very presentable wine he did. And he used to say, Keith, don't worry about wine snobbery. He said, what we do is we use the seven dwarfs, and we go to wine tastings or even to cocktail parties, and we'll take a little sip and we'll use the seven dwarfs. Snow White's, Entourage, and we will say, that's a grumpy little number. Yes. Oh, that's a dozy little wine. So we'll go through these seven names, and people will look at us as if we know what the hell we're talking about. So yes, of course, you can become familiar with wines, and in fact, people do. So I'm not laughing at it necessarily. It's just that an awful lot of us pretend, and either we like it or we don't. And sometimes we are afraid to say we don't because we are being told that it's a wonderful wine. Let's join Annie Verrill along with her colleague who owns a wine company, although he's now gone to join the Marines, and they actually take their way through a couple of reds and a couple of whites to let us know what they're thinking about. All right, here they are.
Hello and good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Here we are with the second episode, which is all about wine tasting for all the people out there who are wine connoisseurs or just want to know a little bit more about the wines themselves. So we have with us Mr. Fergus Wood, who will introduce himself and tell you all about his company. Hello, Fergus.
How you
Please
doing?
tell us more about yourself. I'm well, and once we get through all these wines, we'll be even better, probably. How are you?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It'll be a great way. We're recording this at lunchtime, so hopefully it should get us
Indeed.
into the afternoon quite nicely. Yes. And
Just the
Thursday-
right time for it.
Exactly. Thursday's the new Friday as well, so at least we're starting early. It's good.
Oh, I like that. That's great.
So yes, I'm Fergus Wood. I'm the founder of Camino del Vino, as you can tell in the background. I'm a new startup. We're about to launch a new startup, online wine startup, where you can find us at www.caminodelvino.co.uk.
I think it's very clever of you to have started this company because I myself, I don't know much about wine. I know there are 3 different colors.
Yeah. There's 3 main colours, but there's orange wines as well. But we'll go with that.
There we go.
Let's keep it simple to start with.
Shall we leave that for later?
Yeah.
Let's have red and white
Let's
later
white
on
and
for
rose
now.
later.
Okay, great. So last time you were about to start talking about this beauty here,
Go
Wonderful.
with a pearl earring, yes.
which is a Merlot.
Correct.
Lovely. Here it is, and it's Chilean, is it?
It is Chilean, yes, correct, yeah.
Great.
So it went by a different name, the portrait, or the painting, sorry.
Yeah,
I can't remember what it is, or don't really know.
No, that's fine.
But
Yeah.
it's now just known as the girl with the pearl earring because it is so iconic and so distinct.
Indeed.
But this particular Merlot is also great for the region. It just thrives in the Central Valley, and the Central Valley it's sort of wedged in between the Andes on the east coast, and then it's got small sort of low-lying mountains on the west side. So it really tucks in below there. And Chilean climate is very Mediterranean. It's very warm and sunny, but then sort of it gets that through the day. But then when the cool climate from the top of the Andes comes down, when it comes into the night, it starts to cool all the vineyards down, so it helps mellow out sort of the growing conditions, basically. So it doesn't go ahead of itself, really. It doesn't wear itself out through the growing season, so it sort of cools itself down. So it doesn't need to start photosynthesizing, and it basically ends up with a lovely, elegant wine at the end of the day, and which we hopefully crack onto now.
I love the way you told that story. You should be a teacher. It's like a nice piece of geography and a little bit of history, and the story behind it. Well done. Can I open the bottle now?
Yeah, should we do it? Yeah. Crack on. Let's see, why not? I left mine annoyingly in my storeroom outside, so it's a little bit cool, but I think yours should be at a good temperature.
Yes.
Because you don't want it. Red wines, particularly, you want them to be like 16 to 18 degrees, sort of like. If you have them at room temperature, you should be fine. Red wine's a little bit chilled at the moment, but you should just be fine. You should still get the same flavors, which is good. So.
Okay. Right. Let's open that up. Now, before anyone judges out there, this is what we decided on having the red in, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm not a very big
Yeah, that's good.
wine connoisseur. I just grabbed whatever glass I had at home. I just wanted to make sure it's not a
good
pint
one.
glass.
No. So it's very good. So if you hold it up to the camera, you can see
Yeah.
that in a bulb shape.
Yeah.
Sort of like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's very good for wines in general, because it helps collect all the aromas and flavors rather than let them go. So when you do swirl it around, and when we go and sniff the wine, you can actually smell all the flavors that are in there. And so it just helps those sort of pinched in walls help the flavors and aromas bounce off and keep inside. So, and where you want to fill it is just below the sort of the widest part of the bulb.
Here?
Just want it, about there. Just fill it out,
Just
we're
below the
taking-
widest part. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to fill it at its widest part. You just want to fill it slightly below, especially for tasting, because
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that you don't want to. Later on after the recording, you can fill it right back up.
No.
Just for tasting, you want to let all the aromas just tuck in. Whereas if you filled it a little bit higher, they may just sort of go out.
Also, let me just ask about the top. Now, of course, many people believe that if it's not a corkscrew, then it's no good. If
Mhm.
it's just a screw on. What's the truth behind this?
So, there is a slight bit of truth in that. Yeah, a lot of one of my friends as well. He's very, especially for like these sort of wines, South American wines that do have a corkscrew. He just doesn't. He doesn't believe that good red wines should not be in a corkscrew. It's they should have a cork in it basically. Just because it's like, what the cork does essentially, it just imparts a different level of flavour onto the wine that maybe the winemaker wants to do. But it's just, again, it could be a cost factor, or it depends very much depending on what the winemaker wants to do. But I guess it is sort of genuinely true that a lot of the cheaper wines do have screw caps, because it does cost a little bit more to put corks in, redesign the bottle and all that sort of stuff. But there are still very good examples of wines which have corks, twisty caps, screw caps on the top. And so, again, it's just like, it's one of those really. You can just take it as you will. Hopefully you'll like this one, and so, which is a good example of it being a good wine and needing a screw cap. But yeah, it's just, it imparts a different flavour onto the wine, basically.
Good. Well, thank you. You demystified that.
You're testing me today.
I told you I'm a novice, so whatever pops in my mind, I shall ask. I don't know if it's silly or not. But...
I like it.
Very good. So now to the important part.
The important.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good. That's perfect. Yeah, that's great. So I got that.
Lovely.
So what you
swirl.
You just want to give it a quick swirl. You should be able to, if you just gently put your nose over it. I can you can smell it already. You should be able to smell like fruit flavors already.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so they're quite typically, especially for this Merlot, they're typically red fruit flavors, so such as strawberries.
I was going to ask, is there strawberry in there somewhere?
Exactly, yeah. So that's very typical of a good Merlot, and sort of representing what the grape can offer, basically. And so give it a big swirl, and then if you want to dig deeper, put your nose in it, and you can try and pick up, especially if you do go a little bit deeper, some sort of floral notes as well that maybe the wine should have as well, that could be present in this. You can smell it. I can definitely.
Oh dear. No.
What are you getting?
Floral. What type?
If not, no worries. If your nose may not be particularly as attuned as mine, but it's something you may get to develop on later on.
All right.
Yeah. You may as well be able to pick up maybe slight bit of bell pepper sort of flavor, like green pepper. Exactly.
Right. Thank you very much. We shall be back next time. Thank you. Thank you to the viewers, and thank you to lovely Mr. Wood.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Well, there you are. Is a little look from a layman's point of view at the world of wine. We miss Fergus a great deal because he was not only a very pleasant chap, but explained things extremely well. But we actually at Mirador have had various people in our team. Annie Verrill was one of them, and very talented people they turned out to be. But is nowadays you have to tell where the money is. We live in that sort of society. It's interesting that probably the height of fame, if you like, for both myself and Melissa Conti, a lady from New York. We worked together in 1990, and I was at Reuters, and she was at Morning Business Report, PBS, in the States. I was her London anchor, and we did that for almost 10 years, coast to coast in the United States. But both of us started as working for free. And that's how we worked our way up in the industry. Very few youngsters now are prepared to work for free to gain the skills. The first question is how much are you going to pay me? And is that because of a fight for survival? Is it greed? Is it unwillingness to really invest in your education? I don't know. It is difficult to say. What the current mores is amongst youngsters as they go into the workforce. All I know is that there are an awful lot of talented people that are baristas. And while it's a very good profession for sharpening your social skills, being nice to people who are rude to you, difficult or dissatisfied with the product, it's hardly a career shaping job, is it? And so today is very interesting. That let me just read to you the Mirror reports on a survey that gives new insights into how the English language is changing. Adults aged under 28 were asked if they'd heard of a series of traditional British insults. More than half the respondents were unfamiliar with the words lummox, bampot, and that's one that I'm not familiar with, I must confess, blighter, plonker, and ninny. The Mirror speculates they've been replaced by more contemporary insults, like saying someone has a main character syndrome, meaning they want to be the center of attention, being basic, which is having mainstream tastes, or calling somebody a Karen, an entitled moaner. I must say that all those latest ones are, and the Star picks up on this, and it says the younger generation turn noses up at our put-downs. It's the end of the plonkers. And it shows David Jason in Only Fools and Horses. Where they use the gits, the nitwits, the numpties, and even the Burks. I suppose I still use some of those myself. But some words are dying out with the younger generation not using anymore or not understanding what a plonker is or a git. Not that they're particularly attractive words, but nonetheless, we now no longer use those words. And so I'm not going to call anybody a plonker anymore. Not that I ever call them a plonker, really, is much. I try hard not to use words which make me shave my ability to shape my thoughts with the English language. But still, there we go. I'm not that great at the English language, and so I'd like to think that plonker or git is still floating around there in the background somewhere. Language, of course, changes over the years, and meanings change. Indeed, we've discussed them on this program, and even memory becomes a memory loss. Anyway, there we go. It's now 25 past. What is it? 25 past 9, and John Henty will be along in the not too distant future. He normally takes a little peek in from home to make sure that I'm here, and that he struggles up the hill with purpose. But he is, he's a good chap, John. We're going to have some rollicking fun when he gets here. We always do. Let's just not leave the serious stuff just for a moment. Let's just look back at one or two of the stories. Starmer splits the party by accepting a Tory defector. Now, this story I find quite upsetting. It's been time honoured that people can cross the house if they want to. All right. So this lady who crossed the house, let's see, what's her name again? Miss Elphick. Natalie Elphick has left the Tories and joined Labour. Mind you, instead of doing it in a dignified way, she waited till Prime Minister's questions and then rose from her seat and with great pomp and circumstance crossed the House and waiting for the huge accolades of the Labour Party. Basically, she's looking after her own career, seeing that it looks as if perhaps her seat would go to Labour. So now she is Labour, and she can ensure that she'll get back into Parliament, or will she? Because it didn't go according to plan, and nor should it. I am all for people of conviction getting so wound up that they will cross the seat, across the floor of the House. But they have to then face their constituents. They have to make sure that they're going to be able to look their constituents in the eye and see. And I have Philip with me, so let's get his reading on it. Philip, good morning.
Yeah, hello, Keith. Division, dysfunction in our politics. Sunak telling students not to be anti-Semitic to get the Jewish vote, no doubt. Opportunist female Tory MP leaves the party, having criticised Labour for years, and is taken on by Starmer, much to the chagrin, as I understand it, of most Labour MPs, and I don't blame them.
I don't either.
Talk about the rat leaving the sinking ship.
Yeah.
But Starmer needs to look in the mirror on this one. This is unprincipled. He's as opportunistic as she is.
Yes.
In my opinion. And she, the thought of her being re-elected in her current constituency of Dover as a socialist is pretty remote, in my opinion. So what on earth she's thinking about, I don't know. But the pundits, the correspondents seem to suggest that her mind changes with the wind in any event. So basically, she's unpopular everywhere.
Yes.
But it is, sadly, it's an omen for Sunak and the Conservatives. It simply confirms, in my opinion, as you've asked me, the fact that there is no way on earth they will win a general election.
Yes. I think that's a foregone conclusion now.
Yeah.
The thing is that the experts are predicting a hung parliament. Hung which way?
Well, scorn was poured on that theory. That theory, and I heard it on Radio 4 by accident because my wife listens to Radio 4 a lot. And their conclusion was that it was a combination of pure speculation and the Tories manipulating the figures and making this distinction between local and general elections. And I listened to this utterly bizarre argument by some Tory spin doctor, somehow suggesting that they only really lost one seat. I mean, it was extraordinarily manipulative of figures and, well, insulting to those of intelligence who have a genuine interest in this stuff. But this university stuff, I come back to beating the same drum. You're not anti-Semitic because you object to the way Netanyahu is battering the Palestinians. You're not anti-Semitic, you're anti-war, anti-violence, anti-tribalism, whatever you want to call it. And even Biden's woken up, which Melissa will tell us is unusual, because he's usually asleep. But he's woken up to the principle that I don't like American bombs and missiles killing Palestinians. So one way or another, this has to come to an end, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
But the problem is we said that about Ukraine. And that shows no sign of ending. Today is Russia Day, or Heroes Day, marking the victory over the Nazis in World War II, which is the whole pretext of Putin going into Ukraine, alleging that it's a Nazi regime, which it manifestly is not and never has been. And in the early days of the war, not the special military operation, in the early days of the invasion, Russians taken prisoner were allowed onto social media. And they were all saying, there aren't any fascists here. This is just a regular country. Why are we here? Why am I fighting these people? They're my neighbors. Of course, that's all been stultified now. But you may have read what he's done is he's got the Russian army to bring to Moscow all the hardware they've captured from the Ukrainians including German Leopard tanks, British Land Rovers, and you name it. And it's all on display in central Moscow. And apparently it's attracting thousands. You know, and comments from the Muscovite, oh, aren't our boys doing well? And look at that British thing, that American thing, that German thing, these damn Westerners, you know. So, you know, Putin is a very, very cunning, manipulative and dangerous man.
Yes.
And tomorrow he's being inaugurated yet again after a completely fake election. So unless he dies, we can always hope, or is assassinated, which is highly unlikely, because he uses lookalikes all the time. We've got another 6 years of him. So God knows what he's going to do after because he's going to win in Ukraine. Eventually, you know, the Ukrainians.
Yes.
Yeah, the Ukrainians, with whatever weaponry, they haven't got the manpower. The West will not put boots on the ground, or at least I hope they won't. And Putin knows that. And to read last week the evidence that he's using North Korean ballistic missiles. They found an odd-looking missile wreckage in Ukraine, and one of their weapons experts asked for it to be moved to Kyiv so she could analyze it. And when she went into it, it was obvious it was from North Korea. The worrying thing was that it was actually highly sophisticated, because it was using the same chips that we use in our mobile phones, which are readily available. So point number one is Kim Jong-un, whatever he's called, is getting stuff in. You know, despite all the sanctions, all the banning, he's getting key constituents, parts for these weapons. And they proved it was North Korean because on the fuselage was the number 117. Now, North Koreans don't use a normal calendar. They use, I'm loath to use the phrase non-binary, but it is non-binary. So 117 is the year 2023 in our money. And also further down the fuselage, they found the North Korean K symbol, which is to denote North Korea. So proof positive that it was from North Korea, and they are selling or sending with the like in kind to Russia their missiles and ammunition. Because a lot of the Russian army still use Soviet era stuff, and that's what the North Koreans have. So I found that pretty chilling, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, you've got two nutters out east, and then we're going to get Trump, so we've got three nutters. But on a happier note, lovely story in the papers and on Radio 3, funnily enough, this morning. You may have read it out already about the toddler, the 18-month-old, and incredibly, they've regened her ears.
Yes.
And she can now hear and is beginning to speak. I mean, that is just amazing.
Yes. It's a lovely story, isn't it?
And there's also an article about Beethoven and his deafness, because he became deaf at quite a young age. And what they've done is they have taken a strand of his hair from his remains, because the hair never disintegrates, the hair stays. And they've done an analysis of the hair, and it shows that by modern standards, his body was 90 times leaded as ours are. So he had 90 times the level of lead that we so-called modern people should have. And they've decided there were two reasons for that. One, he ate a huge amount of fish, but the fish was from the River Danube, which was highly polluted, particularly with lead, just like the Thames used to be. And also he drank their concoction of sweet wine, which had lead in it. Believe it or not, they actually added lead and served the wine in leaden vessels because it sweetened the wine. And he, like me, used to drink copious amounts of red wine. So they think they've discovered a potential reason for why he went deaf.
Yes.
Because he also suffered from, I'm told, horrible stomach cramps and appalling flatulence. So he can't have been a particularly pleasant chap to be around, I would have thought.
Yeah.
But no, anyway, so that's what I've picked up on the news.
Yes. It's interesting.
Recently.
Just going back, Philip, to you talking about Ukraine and Russia and so on, is just a couple of observations from my time in Moscow. I've found no anti-British sentiment at all in Moscow. I'm not saying that it wasn't there, but I didn't experience it. I to this day maintain a number of Russian friends and the people who treated me very kindly and very hospitably. But I also found the same in Ukraine, and the people that I was training, who were in the very east of the country, in Lugansk, which is quite close to the Russian border and where the rocket was fired from that brought down the Malaysian airline, there were a number of very ambitious ladies that I was training in communications there. And they invited me to one of their birthday parties, and it was one of the jolliest affairs, and I was made to feel terribly welcome. The strange thing is that I also worked with a number of people from what we would call the interior, the countryside of, and they were quite different. They were impervious. They never smiled. They were quite adamant that they knew exactly what everything was about. So it would surprise me that the people who are looking at all the remnants of foreign arms stockpiled in Moscow are there for anything other than curiosity, not necessarily that they are gloating over the fact that that their armies are pounding, the foreigners to bits. It goes against all my experience of the Muscovite. But not necessarily my experience of those people from the interior.
Right. Well, firstly, do you mean the interior of Russia or Ukraine?
Interior Russia.
Right. Well,
yeah.
The comments I made about what people were saying about this war debris in Moscow were direct quotations captured by the BBC's Moscow correspondent, who I think is called Rosenberg. So that's what he reported back. Quite a long time ago, my daughter Jessica went on a school trip to Moscow, and she was there for about 10 days. And the one thing she said to me when she came back was how unfriendly the people in Moscow were towards them. Now, I have to accept that not every Russian likes what Putin is doing. But he makes damn sure they don't. The ambitious ladies you taught are in the very area that is now effectively Russian occupied.
Yes, that's right.
Where they are reportedly brainwashing the children and the not so young into being Russian. They're getting them to write letters to the Russian military, thanking them for liberating their country. They are no longer allowed to sing the Ukrainian national anthem. It has to be the Russian national anthem. Speaking Ukrainian is frowned on. So what's going on down there is ethnic cleansing or culture cleansing. So I wonder what your ambitious ladies, if they're still there, would be thinking now.
Yes. My guess is that Ukraine was split, that the western part was very much European and spoke Ukrainian. In fact, Lugansk, particularly the older population, spoke Russian.
Yes,
they
well,
changed to switch to Ukrainian, actually, in my view, the European Union handled things very badly in that area because they introduced with some haste privatization, and it is the Lugansk area was very much the very big steel mills, coal mines, and so on, and all of which employed 30,000, 40,000 people. And when they privatized it, of course, they cut it down to sort of 5,000 to 10,000 and mechanized it. So the unemployment was huge. And that does not endear you to the local population.
no, of course it doesn't.
And there was no safety net.
No. Well, I actually don't know why Zelensky is so determined to retake all of that territory. I mean, if its heart and soul is essentially Russian, or at least pro-Russia, I don't see, apart from pride, what the loss is. And should this war ever end, it will at least mean the concession of those territories to Russia. It has to. The Ukrainians alone will never shift the Russians out of that territory, because all Putin will do is pour more and more bodies into what the Russians themselves call the meat grinder, which is the great big mincing machine.
Yes.
That kills soldiers, sailors, and airmen, but they don't care about the numbers. I mean, an unofficial estimate that I read a few days ago, unofficial estimate, I stress, but they reckon the Russians could already have lost 500,000 men. 500,000 men. Now, the Russians say they've lost 55,000. We know that's a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
Utter rubbish. But it's like in the Second World War with Leningrad and Stalingrad. They don't care. I mean, at Stalingrad, they would send soldiers across the river. I think it's the Vistula, but I could be wrong about that. But they send them across the river in unarmored barges that the Germans bombed and artilleried. So that killed half of them. When they got to the shore, they were sent up the slope in twos. The man in front had the gun because they were under-equipped. So one man in front had the gun, and he had a second behind him with no gun. But when the front man was killed or wounded, the second man picked up the gun and carried on. And if they turned back, the NKVD, the military police for the Russians, would gun them down. They would kill their own men. I mean, it's just horrific. It's Kafkaesque, but that's what happened. And that is what is happening now.
Yes.
That is what is happening now. And their casualties are massive, but they don't care.
No.
You know, they've got Chechens fighting for them who are complete loonies. They've got Cubans. I read an article the other day about an interview with a group of Cuban soldiers who, on the promise of a Russian passport and a better life, have volunteered to fight in the Russian army. Cubans. You know, so Putin is finding warmongery, machinery and men from all over the world.
Yes, yes. It just shows the capricious nature of authoritarian leaders. Not far outside Moscow is a place called New Jerusalem, and they are lovingly restoring a cathedral which was used as target practice by the Nazis as they approached Moscow. Of course, they never actually entered the city, but they were on the outskirts, and they shelled this cathedral. And my hosts showed me and pointed out a little religious icon, which is very important to Russians, and high up on the wall of this cathedral. And they said that was donated by President Putin. So, you know,
well,
he does at least understand what turns his electorate on, as it were.
Well, when the invasion began, there was footage of Russian soldiers being blessed by Russian Orthodox priests on their way to war. And that is exactly what happened in the Second World War and the First World War. In the First World War, it was a natural habit that the Tsar, Nicholas II, and his closest Orthodox priests would go down military parades with holy water and bless all the soldiers who were going to war. Now, Putin has done the same. I don't believe for a minute Putin has a religious bone in his body. The Russian KGB mentality is secular because they regard the church as an enemy. But not this time. As you say, he was canny enough to go back to the spirit of the Russian people and the tradition of the Orthodox Church. I mean, during Stalin's time, Khrushchev, all of that lot, Brezhnev, religion was discouraged. They shut churches, they shut cathedrals. But your example of the iconic cathedral, no pun intended, he will know that that is another symbol of his country embracing the Orthodox Church and also restoring an iconic cathedral that was destroyed by Nazis.
Yes. Philip, can I ask you to just carry on with this narrative just for 5 minutes while I let John Henty in?
Yes, of course.
I'm doorkeeper as well this morning.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll be
Yes,
back
of
in a
course.
moment.
Well, there we are, viewers. You're stuck once again with me, because Keith, being in the Black Horse pub before it actually opens, he has to open the door to his next guest. And it would seem that his next guest, I assume at 10 o'clock, it now being 6 minutes to 10, is John Henty, who, as I understand it, is a very seasoned and experienced radio broadcaster, as well as a devoted Louisian, and keeps you all entertained. You may have noticed that Keith is using his second camera to focus on himself from a sideways view. He wasn't asked, he was told to stop using the camera facing out to the street because he got a call from Ofcom. Obviously somebody had complained about the intrusion, as they perceived it, of the camera. So now he's decided, because he's a complete poser, to have the camera turned on himself. But actually, what it has done, and there is John Henty, what it has done, Keith, is really rather improve the double vision. Because I can see you and John very clearly. So I'll leave you to it.
Very well. Philip, thank you, as usual. Very incisive comment. Now, sadly, we will have Harry here tomorrow, but not you.
Well, you know the reason for that.
Yes, I do.
It's unavoidable. It's very boring. Very boring as well. But basically, the smart meters put in by my old energy supplier have broken down. And they both need replacing by my new energy supplier. And it's taken me an age to persuade them to do that. So tomorrow is the day, and it will mean that I will lose power at some point during the day. If, however, I manage to have access to the Wi-Fi and everything, I will keep an eye on things and hop in if I can. Anyway,
very well.
Have a lovely time with John. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye, Philip. Now, I've been sort of quite clever, I thought, John.
Well,
there, they've got double digits on us.
I saw it earlier.
Yes.
I thought, good gracious me, a dual personality. Remember I saw one, yes.
Yes.
Well,
here we are.
Well, you know, Philip talking about losing power midway through the day, I thought, yes, I do most days, actually.
Yes, me too.
And suddenly it all ebbs away, and I think, no. It's technology. It's awful. It's dreadful. I can't cope. I mean, I won't even go there. So, I mean, why do we need to talk about technology when we've got this sort of technology?
Absolutely.
I mean, come on, for goodness sake. The power of television, more about that a bit later on, because I've got a little book in here which talks about the early days of television. Do you know what year this book is? 1933.
Really?
The start of television, and Baird, of course, with his wonderful discoveries and how it developed not only in the British, but the Americans, by the way, I think you probably know this, the Americans learned their television from us. Baird started it,
Yes.
and even this book confirms that. We'll come to the book a bit later on.
Yes. Well, actually, it goes even Sussex is a real pioneer because Mad Jack Fuller, who made his fortune, well, he didn't make his fortune, he inherited a fortune from plantations in the West Indies in the late 1700s, early 1800s, and of course from slavery. And he was a lifelong proponent of using slaves. But he also funded Davy with the miner's lamp that saved so many lives, but also Faraday of Faraday's cage. And Faraday, yes, that's right. Faraday was, if they hadn't have had the research of Faraday, television would have been much slower in coming than. So there you are. You see, you have to be very careful before actually condemning people because some people do a lot of good with their money.
Creativity alongside the more dubious side of life. Absolutely right, I suppose. And I wouldn't argue with that. By the way, excuse me a moment. I brought a little friend with me this morning, and he's singing his heart out in here. So I'm just going to let him out.
Right.
Wait a minute, excuse me. You all right? Oh, here he is.
Oh, look at that.
I know.
Yes.
Well, he's a lovely little chap.
Absolutely.
And I take him out at this time of the year because you won't be able to hear him, viewers, the lady in Poynings in particular. I know you like wildlife. That's why you watch Keith. Wild, he gets absolutely furious at times. No, this is a little friend of mine. I haven't got a name for him. We're working on it. But he's we talk about tweets. Well, this little chap has been tweeted most of his life. He seems to have, I don't know, Faraday. If you can find a battery anywhere there, Sir Keith, there is no battery. And this little chap sings merrily away, and then he'll stop.
Oh, how lovely.
I know you can hear him, but I'm afraid our viewers probably can't. And if your hearing's anything like me, you definitely won't. But I take him everywhere. And he even joined in with the sort of chorus as I came here this morning. Yeah, you sit over there and please. Oh, he stopped. Oh, that's good. I'm glad.
Out of the Henty bag.
Would you believe
because it has many treasures. What happened to our friend the worm?
Oh, Whirly.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he was delighted. And by the way, as a direct result of appearing here, and I have to say elsewhere, but certainly here on Mirador, Whirly has now gained, and I think it's gone to his head actually. And I've had to, I've put him in a dark room, and he's happy at the moment. No, these are all people that we all need in a way. These other alter egos, or whatever the word is. So Whirly the Worm and my friend here, I think we'll probably call you, I don't know, Chirpy. Chirpy, cheep.
Right.
There we are. So there's Chirpy over there, and Whirly's at home in the dark. I want to mention one thing, because there was a news item last night, and I know how we like to be on the ball with the news. You mentioned that lady moving over to I was listening, over to the Socialists or the Tories or the Labour. I don't know, none of it. Moved a house across the house, did she? Right. Very dramatic. Whenever I move across my house, my wife says, "Oh look, no more dust, please, John." Yesterday there was an item, and I can sum it up quite briefly. This summer, a modest pace on the Palace Pier is going to cost £1. Did you know that?
No.
Yes, and I must say I'd like to comment about that. Largely because I've worked on the Palace Pier, largely because I know the lady who now operates brilliantly the Palace Pier, and also because sad to say, I actually appreciate why it's had to be done. And I need to add quickly for all of you who live within the Brighton area, and I know there are many of you, according to my information, this does not apply to Brighton residents. So they will still be able to go on the pier as they have done for many, many years. The reason for the cost of £1, and it's a very modest figure for a magnificent structure, is maintenance. It's as simple as that. People simply go on there and admire it. And I know the amount of maintenance that goes on there, particularly apart from the painting and all the wonderful paintwork around, but also because of the decking, crucial, the decking. And that would, it goes without saying, now cost vast sums of
Yes,
money.
and the roads quite quickly, I would imagine.
Of course,
Yes,
because
yes.
of the salt sea,
Yes.
etc., and the battering that it gets year in, and even worse these days. So in a way, I can't argue with that. I'm sad because I always thought one of the great benefits of Brighton was to be able to go to the
Yes.
pier, just stroll on the pier, sit in a deck chair, which was free, by the
Yes,
way,
yes,
as well.
Yes.
Eat your fish and chips, and nothing in the world can beat the Palace Pier. In fact, I have a little sign here, which I thought I'd bring along as well, which sums up the joys, in point of fact. And there it is, everybody. Can we see that? I think we can.
Yes,
probably.
we can.
It's a lovely lady there. And this, it says, Brighton Palace Pier, amusements and sea bathing.
Ooh.
There we are. So that's a wonderful poster that I acquired many moons ago, largely because, as I said, I worked on the pier for a while. There was...
You had a pianola on the pier.
I had a
You
piano.
did, yes.
I mean, all the... is it alliteration? Pianola playing on the pier, Palace Pier? Properly, of course, with
Yes.
a touch of the Chopins. We had this pier and we had this piano. And it was a summer very like the summer we're about to get, I suspect. It was 1976. I've mentioned it before. Nobody, unfortunately, went into the little cafe where I was. So I would sit there on a very hot afternoon, hoping that someone would ask for a tune, because we would play them various tunes on this player piano.
Yes.
And
Describe what a pianola is, 'cause I think that it's one of those things that has slipped out of the conscious of the modern generation.
they're very collectible, of course. It goes without saying. I wonder where my well, I know where my pianola is, in point of fact, because I actually bought a pianola, since we're on the subject, and they are player pianos. In other words, there are pedals indeed, and they activate rolls of metallic which have notes on them, and they go round and round, rather as in a musical box, of course, but you actually operate it.
Yes.
And we had, and then there were also rolls. There were rolls, you see. And in point of fact, oh, wait a moment, no, that's probably wrong. Let me get this right. Oh, no, that's right. There were rolls that were above that you had to fit into a machine at the front. And then you pedal down here.
That's right.
Exactly right.
Yes.
And those rolls contain music by Joplin, for example. And the one that we had, which was about this, it was an enormous piano roller. And it was the 1812 Overture.
Ooh.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Me. And believe me, that took some pedaling.
I bet.
Oh,
Yes, I had a great aunt who had one actually, and
Really?
yes, we would, of course, as children, it was fascinating to be able to play the piano by pedaling.
exactly.
Yes.
My aim, of course, I mentioned this before, I know, was actually to take the dome, or the dome in Brighton, and a big concert arena, and have the pianola there together with candelabra. I would wear the Liberace bit, and I would come on and pedal for about. But somehow nobody bought that idea, which I couldn't.
Yeah, I think it's rather a good idea.
People
Yeah.
lack imagination
They do.
these days. So back to
They
the
do.
lady on the pier. She now runs this on behalf of a fairly sizable organisation that has done very, very well, because they took it over from the Nobles Group, who did a good job, but were struggling, it has to be said, and largely gained most of their income from the slot machines and the rest of it, whereas there are so many other outlets now, of course. So in the end, they changed all of that, and they improved, for example, much of the metalwork had to be painted. Now, of course, it's all, what's the word for it? It doesn't have to be painted anyway. So that's very good indeed. That makes a lot of sense. But I was sad. I thought a penny to pace on the Palace Pier, a step too far. I don't know.
What a good title.
Yes, it is really.
Yes, really.
I like it. It rolls off the tongue, but it's sad at the same time because I shall certainly continue to go on the pier, and I will happily, despite the fact that I'm not a Brighton resident anymore, but I shall go there whenever I can, and I'll pay my pound, and I hope everybody else will as well.
Indeed, and John is in doing that. They actually perpetuate the memory of one of Lewis's great sons, Mr. Every, who ran the Phoenix Works.
So he did.
And he, a lot of the wrought iron work, the fancy work along the front and the pier was made by him here in Lewis. And he actually started somewhere in the 1700s, or at least his with a donkey and a grinding stone.
Really.
And that's how the Phoenix Works, which actually ended up building ships.
Good gracious.
Yes, started.
And ironwork.
And its memory is encapsulated in your favourite place, the Palace Pier.
Well, there you are. You see, there's a link. I know there are people out there at the moment saying, "Oh, you know, this is all. We hadn't planned this at all," but that's really interesting stuff, and I'm sure it would interest the people on the Palace Pier too. By the way, there is another a sister organisation called Latest TV that operates in Brighton, and believe it or not, they've moved their HQ where? To the Palace Pier.
Have they really?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the question is, of course, what will that mean for those who wish to appear on the pier? Well, they have to pay a pound. Yes. Will you come on our programme? Yes. Or you'll have to pay a pound. Mind you, you don't pay anything to appear on this programme, I can assure you. Oh, no, absolutely. In fact, everybody's welcome. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Completely right.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the joys of this Mirador television is, apart from the fact that these old people rabbit on and on and on most days of the week, there's also a lot of footage of really interesting things about Lewis, which we all enjoy. What a historic town it is. And you did a little feature about a lady who I've had dealings with in the past 7 days, called Leslie, who is the portrait artist.
Ah, yes.
Right.
He's done a picture of you and me, and yes.
Can you imagine that, everybody? Yes, you can. I thought so, yes. Oh, by the way, Brian in South Ruislip, are you there this morning? Brian? Oh, he is. He's a good friend of ours and watches there in South Ruislip. I thought I'd mention him. Yes, we both had our portraits painted. And by the way, it's not that we're vain necessarily, which we are, but it's also because every penny towards those portraits goes to the RNIB or possibly cancer research.
Yes, Action Cancer. In fact, the paintings are still on display. And
in the window,
in the window of Action Cancer, and strangely enough, the son of the lady who paints those pictures is sitting outside, right outside this window.
You really, I know there are people. That gentleman in Twittering doesn't believe that, and I hadn't honestly noticed that. That's absolutely bless him as well.
And in fact, I ask him from time to time how his mother is.
Yes,
and
she's
is
had her
housebound, I think, but she's as old as us.
Impossible. Talking age, you know the buses that go past. Well, I was on one of those buses on Tuesday. This is Thursday now. This was Tuesday, and there were no trains. You see,
right,
no trains. So I needed to go to meet the Max Miller. More about Max in a moment, madam. I had to go into Brighton, so I got an early bus, and it was very busy, unlike the one that's just gone past the window. It was very busy, and a rather charming elderly lady was sitting in one of those seats on the downstairs, and there was a space there, and you know people don't really like other people coming and sitting next.
No.
But she sort of said, seeing there was no room, so I said, "Oh, thank you so much, very much." She said, "No trains today." She said, "I know." I said, "Are you going into Brighton?" "Yes." She said, "It's my birthday." And then, being John me, I said, "What's your name?" She said, "Patricia." And I said, "Where do you live?" "Broad Oak," she said, which is another part of Sussex, by the way, not far away, some distance by bus. She was going in to celebrate her birthday with her son. I think that was it, maybe a grandson, one of the two. And so I said, your birthday? She said, "How old are you?" You know, the fatal question, Kevin, Keith, that we always think, hello. She said, "I'm 88. No, she said, "I'm 89. So I said, "Well, I'm 88. And she said, I thought brilliantly, "I was yesterday." That is a great story. Bless her. Lovely lady. She has one or two problems, but there she was on her own on the bus, going to celebrate her birthday. I discovered she was a needlewoman, so we talked a little bit about that. And that journey, which is pretty onerous at the best of times, that was very pleasurable. And then we sat quietly for a while as well. And I just thought, what a lovely lady, Patricia, and how nice and how easy it would have been not to speak to her.
Yes.
You know.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. No, it's nice to chat to people who are willing to chat.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a chore when people don't want to talk,
Yes.
and you have to
Yes.
pull it out of them.
Which you can understand.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know, one of the great hopes that I have for the future is there are still a lot of people who are willing to talk.
Yes.
And even if it's only hello, how are you? Because as I tootle around on my mobility scooter,
Yeah.
and I pass people, I always say thank you for,
Yeah.
and they nearly always say, "I love the hat."
Exactly. It's a talking point, which of course everyone needs as well. And on that talking point, I mentioned, did I not, Leslie? And Leslie is doing something on behalf of, you will not believe the way these things link together, on behalf of the Max Miller Appreciation Society. So I thought I would bring along with me, because I'm going to take this to her this morning. She is doing this wonderful portrait of Max Miller, the cheeky chappie, who died, by the way, on May the 3rd, 1963. So this week, so many years ago. And we're having this wonderful, there's a lovely hat, lady with a super sun hat, just about to cross the road. Mind how you go, dear. Yes. Yes, she's got her dark glasses on, and she's got a dog.
Oh, you've got a dog with her, yes.
But I mean, she's in Lewis, so she had to have a dog, you see. It's a sort of passport to freedom. So anyway, I asked Leslie whether she would produce a portrait of Max, which we could then auction at our garden party on August the 11th in the Pavilion grounds. And she was, of course, pleased to do that. We will raise funds for the cancer research, and it will also help the Max Miller Appreciation
That's
Society.
great. That's great.
Now, her only problem was she wanted to know, she knew the hat was white, the Homburg type hat, but she wanted to know what sort of costume he would be wearing that would be typical of Max Miller. So I went away, and I've got these colours, which I'm going to take to her today.
Right.
And I'm hoping that she will, now again, that this may or may not come over too well on the screens, but there we are. I think you can, a fair idea of a very, very, very colourful, flowery suit. That is one of Max's suits. And there is another one just underneath there. And I'm hoping that this will be recreated by the talented Leslie. And then, as a result of that, we will raise a lot of money.
Oh, excellent.
I think so. Let's just have a look at the other picture, and then I'll take it down to see Leslie, who is working today, I'm pretty certain. So there it is. That's the other. That's sort of yellow, which I don't entirely favour. I don't.
No, but it's one that he was known for.
Well, that's exactly. Well, of course, he has a range of suits. I would have said typically Miller, that would have been typically
Yes,
Max Miller.
yes.
So we shall see. And if you would like a copy of this, and believe me, take my word for it, this will be a collectible item in time. And we hope to raise a lot of money for a lot of very good causes. So the lovely Leslie, you must show your little feature about her one of these days.
Yes, well, I will. As a matter of fact, as we enter into the summer period, of course, viewing habits change and so on and so forth. So I am digging into the archives.
Yes.
And I've got 3 or 4, including one of you being interviewed about her. Yes, and your history. So I'm going to dig those out.
Yes. You have been warned, everyone. Yes. It's coming to a screen near you. Absolutely right. Oh my goodness. Well, the only other item of news, apart from the Palace Pier, and I shall continue, and I hope we all will continue to visit the Palace Pier and pay the pound if we need to. £1, for goodness sake. In this day and age, I mean, how much?
It's nothing.
How much is unbelievable. Anyway, good luck to the Palace Pier, we all say. The other event coming up this week in Lewes, which I thought I'd mention, is yet another book fair. In other words, at the town hall, on a fairly regular basis, there is a mega book fair buying and selling books.
Right.
Fascinating.
Yes.
And
when is that?
When is it?
Yes.
It's on Saturday, this coming Saturday, so in 2 days' time, and it's probably doors open at 10, and there is a small admission charge, a modest figure again, something like £1, and it's lovely.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
If you love books, superb children's books, historical books, of course, as well. It's a joy.
Yes.
And I brought one book with me that you could buy there.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, show it to us.
I will.
Because I do have a little bit of news myself for you.
Oh, good.
It's all good. It's all good news.
Well, that's it. What is the point? I mean, there's enough bad news everywhere else.
Oh, absolutely.
Dear, oh dear. Don't give me politics. Don't give me
I mean, I sent a note. Because as you know, I spent some time in Moscow. I sent a note to President Putin,
right?
Saying, please, will you tap in to Henty and Hayes?
Yes.
Because it might lift your mood
absolutely.
a little. Yes.
Well, I mean, we might be the brokers of world peace here. I mean, why not? I mean, if at the moment Putin sees this, I can imagine what he'd say.
Yes.
Yes.
If he won't do it, we'll smack his face.
Well, I wouldn't have voted for him. No, exactly. Well, we've got to be tough in these matters. Now, this was the book that you could very easily acquire.
Oh, that's an Enid Blyton, isn't it?
It is funny. It could be. No, it's not. Oh, don't start Enid Blyton, for goodness sake.
Oh, it's the BBC yearbook. Right.
Yes, I mean, people say to me, what is expecting me to say something like Forsyte Saga, or maybe some tome by some wonderful author. I always say The Naughtiest Girl in the School was my favorite book by Enid Blyton, in point of fact. And I read it many, many times, and I could tell you the entire story, but I don't think I'll bother at the moment. No. This is a BBC yearbook, believe it or not, and I did work for the BBC once upon a time, a long, long time ago. And this is for the year 1933, when even I wasn't around, and I certainly know this chap wasn't around. 33, momentous year in many ways.
Absolutely.
We talk about Hitler, for example. It's when it all started, around 32.
Yes, it was. Yes.
It was indeed. He became the number one man in Hitler, and we all know what happened. This is a really, really interesting book. This shows you, I think, again, you could probably see that. That is a layout of the positioning of Broadcasting House in the middle of London, with all the various stations: Euston, Marylebone, Paddington, Charing Cross, Victoria way down here, of course. St Pancras up there. This is just to explain the position, if you like, and the importance of Broadcasting House at that particular time in 1933. And the one really interesting bit, and I mentioned this because of television, and that is on 1933, television in 1933. And it's a complete breakdown of the very first programs that they attempted. They weren't seen worldwide, of course. And it's the most valuable result of the year of experimental broadcasting, which has been through many, many stages, has been acquiring a vast amount of technical expertise. And that, of course, is they were learning as they went. And, of course, the American connection is too. It's a fascinating insight into television, the very start of television. And there is not a television aerial, but of course a radio aerial, without which, even then, the fact reaching the world.
Crystal Palace?
That one isn't. I think that one is, which is still there. If you go up by train, this one, in point of fact, is on the roof of. It's on the roof of Selfridges in Oxford Street. They even had that. It's a That's amazing. I suppose it's because of its closeness, proximity to broadcasting. Oh, amazing book. So that's the sort of book you can acquire at the book fair in Lewes Town Hall, 10 o'clock this Saturday. And I'll see you there. You'll be in good company if you have beard and glasses, because most of the people who go there have got beard and glasses. Not the women, madam. No, not the women. In fact,
not most of them.
Yes. I tell you what, there's jolly good sustenance too. There's some really nice cakes and things like that.
Are there?
So it's a nice way to spend an hour or so. And you'll be made very welcome. There's a man called John who's normally on the door. So just say, hello, John Beck. Say, John Henty sent me. And he'll say, oh, no, not him. Say, no, we don't allow him anymore, you know. No. Another way to spend your Saturday. When is the recreation of the battle going to be? You know, the one in Lewes? I think
it's pretty soon.
It must be soon,
yes,
mustn't it?
Yes.
We need to. Oh, you've covered that, I'm sure, over the years.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Of course, I personally have a great difficulty even getting to the book fair now because I can't walk.
I know that.
And I will relate a little something to you, if I may. But the piece of news that I wanted is last week we launched SOS.
Oh, right.
Save Our Shellies.
Yeah.
And I announced this on one of the local apps called Nextdoor.
Oh, okay.
And then I also then put it on Facebook and LinkedIn. But the Nextdoor one has now hit something like 1,800 supporters.
Good gracious.
Of saying yes, save our Shellies.
Oh.
On LinkedIn, which of course is a global thing, it's got 200 or so, and Facebook. I haven't actually managed to get an assessment yet, but lots of nice comments about this elegant old hotel has got to be saved. So we've got the ball rolling, and now we will continue to push it.
Oh, couldn't be more. Absolutely. On a day like today, as I walk back into the town, that way into the town, I go past it. And as you say, on a day like today, the people could be eating outside on the lovely lawns, superbly well appointed, very nice, intimate little bars, and all shut, which is deeply tragic. And if you're going to do that, a little bit like the Hippodrome looks as though it's going to come back to life again and everybody is overjoyed. So we would be if we learned that some intelligent hotel running group were able to come in and make a major success.
Well, actually, I don't think it would take much.
No,
because it was very elegant.
Yes,
as you point out, it's got grounds, gardens, I mean, I sat in the gardens
lovely
many a
gardens.
time and having a gin and tonic. But also, another opportunity for you to remind people when the Max Miller Memorial weekend is going to take place, because on Monday, I decided that I was going to be very daring, and I went and I caught a bus and I went into Brighton, and I got off and tried to make my way to the grounds of the pavilion, on the basis that I would be able to see where all the Max Miller stuff was going. And it took me 2 hours from the bus stop to the pavilion door, and by that time all I could do was collapse onto a bus coming back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I tottered, but I did make the effort.
Yes.
And it was good to see. It was a bank holiday. Actually, was a very nice day.
Yes,
of course, and the lots of crowds and so on. I just wish that I could have enjoyed it more.
We'll organise it. We'll organise it, Keith. That's the answer. You've got to organise these things. I won't go into too much detail, but at the moment we're trying to organise a little get-together, family get-together, in the same area that you're talking about.
Right.
And one member of our family has his own mobility wheels,
right?
Together with a small dog. He should come to Lewis, really. And the plan is to have a meal. To do that, you've got to obviously warn in advance.
Yes.
And to try and get in touch with this organisation, which I won't mention it, but has been, first of all, human beings. Then we went into the actual restaurant, and even then they said, no, you'll have to, and then you have to go online. So we go online. It won't surprise everybody out there to know. That's why Mirador Television is a blooming miracle, I'll tell you. It's there, at least it's there at the press of a button, which is more than can be said for. There was a form to fill in about this, which I did. And then it said, put your phone number. So I put my phone number, little red dot. No, not the phone number.
No, that's
so
right.
What do I
wrong
do then?
Phone
and
number,
then it doesn't tell you what to do then.
No.
So I thought, I've now I've sent a note to a lady called Flora. So she's watching at the moment. Hello, Flora. There's a margarine named after you, actually. Did you know that? Yes. And I said, look, I really do like human beings. Why couldn't someone just set this up without... Oh dear, we mustn't go on about that.
No.
But it is absolutely soul-destroying. It's soul-destroying.
It is. And indeed, I was almost denied a doctor's appointment because I got the phone number wrong. I mean, what is a standard phone number? But anyway, let's not take away from the fact. I want you to remind people about the Max Miller celebrations.
Well, that's right. I mean, first of all, May the 23rd, which is coming soon. So that's going to be in the Unitarian Church, but it's a large hall there. A wonderful man, we've mentioned him before, and I know occasionally he's able to watch this. His name is John Mann, with 2 N's, M-A-N-N. He's an extraordinary entertainer, and he's got a little program to die for, actually. Good songs. He's a beautiful pianist, and references to Max and the days of music hall. It's a 2-hour show from about, I think, please get it right, John. I think he's going to start at probably 2:30 or maybe 2 o'clock. Let's say 2 o'clock. Get there at 2 o'clock. And are there tickets available? Well, there may be, but better probably to check it out on www.maxmiller.org. That's our website.
2:30, which date?
Yes, it is May 23, which is in about 2 weeks' time. Oh dear. You see how it speeds past.
Absolutely.
But we will be there, and we'd love to see everybody there as well. And then the weekend that we have that I mentioned earlier, the one where we hope to be auctioning Max Miller's picture, that will be on August the 11th, which you will find is a Sunday, and it's in the afternoon from about 2 o'clock right through until 5 o'clock, and it's in inevitably the Pavilion Gardens Cafe, which, by the way, thrives. Yesterday, and it won't surprise you to know on a day like today, it's beautiful. It's really lovely. On a wet day, it ain't much fun. But on a lovely day, it's good. So we'll be there.
Come on, John. It's England to have soggy sandwiches in dripping rain and a bit of gritty sand in them. That's what makes a great English summer.
That's what makes the entire country. No wonder it's Great Britain. It's largely because there's resilience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Represented here by Lord Hayes and to a certain extent by a weaker John Henty. Yes, onwards and upwards as they shout and as they cry. I think there's a man wanting to come in, which may be my opportunity to slip away, but I'll just let this gentleman in if you'd like to hold on a moment.
Yes, indeed.
Don't go away, everybody.
No, don't. I am going to hold the fort while you're going to.
Come in.
Yes, I mean we get to be publicans on this show as well as TV presenters.
Yes, Henty. Dear grief. Now, whoa, right. Well,
what was he delivering?
I don't like the look of it, actually. I don't think we'll go into that. It looks like a very large sausage roll, actually, which it could be. Dear, I must be on my way because I've got to go and see Leslie with the painting.
Right, with yes. Well, we've had a rollicking half hour, and we are planning. At the moment, we can get together because we both lead very busy lives.
We do.
So I'm trying to get to these awful long weekends out of the way. But we are then planning, what is it, the happy hour with Hayes and Henty?
Hayes and Henty's happy half hour.
Yes.
Happy half hour.
Half hour, right.
Hayes and Henty's happy half hour on podcast.
Yes.
I think we're going to try a podcast.
Yes, indeed. In fact, I'm
Can you imagine
researching podcasts at the moment to see which is the best one to go on. Yes.
Don't even tempt me. Everybody's got one. That's all I know. Everybody's got one. And here are two men who have enough trouble giving their telephone number and then they're going to plan to do a podcast. We are resilient, madam. And if anybody can achieve it, we can. Yes, we can. We will try anyway. Because it would be nice to, in a way, this is lovely. Mirador is super duper and so easy and nice and relaxing. But you see, for the younger people who should be watching this sort of thing, are forced to watch this sort of thing, podcasts are all the things.
Yes, they are.
I don't know. What do they do? Listen to it on buses or something?
Yes, I think so.
Yes. We'll find out. I mean, broadcasts, fine. Podcasts, I don't know. Wormcasts. I mean, what about the word cast? Cast away.
The only thing is, John, there is something called Substack.
What?
I think it's Substack.
Sounds good.
Which actually will publish any articles and so on that you've done. It's rather good. And not only that, but they'll help you sell them if you think that they're. But they actually do a podcast service. But they because it's their sole thing, they research it, and apparently the peak of podcasting has been reached. And that they're looking at other things now. Although they say podcasting will last for a long time, as people are looking around for new ideas. So we will come up with a new idea as well.
Good grief. Yes. I can't imagine what that would be. How are we going to reach out? Other than, I think the alternative might be to buy a megaphone and go down to the precinct and do this.
Yes.
Halifax, come and hear Indy and Hayes happy offer. Horrible. Hooray. That's the answer. Megaphones. think of the business we could do with companies who manufacture megaphones.
Absolutely.
And alternatively, if you've got a megaphone, you'll also need a hearing aid, one of those trumpets.
Yes.
So at the same time, they could actually manufacture. I mean, there must be a firm somewhere manufacturing these sort of things, who at the same time probably could do a hearing trumpet.
Well, his master's voice used to do trumpets for the gramophone.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
well, we can do that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yes. I think, yes, maybe live in the precinct might be an answer.
Absolutely.
And then get everybody there. It would be so much easier. And above all else, we could actually see people. It's all very well talking to that dear lady in Poynings and the other one in, let me see, I forget, it's just a little bit towards Haywards Heath. Can't remember where it is. And of course, our good friend Brian, who patiently watching. Still there, Brian? Oh, no, he's gone now. Because he's a great gardener, is Brian. So he's probably.
Oh, is he?
Oh, he's.
Well, that's the other news that I have. Is I went down to the town hall yesterday and asked to see the town clerk, and it was her day off. But I've been promised some contact today from the secretary there because we want to start the idea, which you had actually, of resurrecting Stephen Catlin's secret garden.
Yep.
And we're prepared to spearhead the idea if we can just get permission.
Absolutely. Oh, so many things.
Absolutely.
Really, I don't know how we cope. Probably everybody says that. So that's it, everybody. It's been really good. Don't forget the dear old Palace Pier. £1, but very good value, madam. Max Miller, of course, equally true. And the book fair. That's the other thing. The book fair on Saturday in Lewis Town Hall. Easily get here by train or even the bus, of course. And it's a joy, and you'll meet lots of other really nice people, as you will do in Lewis. And let me add, if you do have a dog, bring the dog with you, because dogs love Lewis. Oh dear.
It is a doggy town.
It is a very doggy town,
yes.
And we are very dogged in our approach
absolutely,
towards it. Yes.
Absolutely. Never give up, never surrender.
Absolutely. Onwards and backwards is my, onwards and upwards is my cry. And so saying, I shall wander off.
Very well. Good to see you, John.
Oh, my
Keith,
dear chap.
We didn't bring in Itmar's favourites, but we'll save that for next week.
Next week, I'll bring one of my Itmar books.
Oh,
and I'll try and remember.
Right.
Just remind me.
Okay.
Well, chaps, that's it. Time away. Put your bag up top. Thank you, Keith. What a lovely man. Dear, oh dear. And don't forget Leslie's film. We need to see Leslie's film.
Yes, I shall dig out Leslie's film this coming week.
Oh, yes.
And play it next week. I'll try and play it as close to Thursday as possible.
Oh, perfect. I shall go home and watch.
Very well.
Bless you, everybody.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
bye, John.
Goodbye. We're poor little lamb
who have lost their way. Ba, ba, ba. Oh, it's always a pleasure doing the Thursday half hour with John Henty. And that's it's taken us up to 11:15, as it often does, and time for us to say goodbye. And I hope that you didn't find it too distracting having a double image looking at us differently. I'm sure that we'll let us know if that's the case. But for the moment, I just have to do a little bit of engineering. There we go. And to say toodle pip. And we will see you tomorrow morning. And normally it's a pretty good day. Is it tomorrow? We have all your favorites on. Harry from Normandy. We have We have Dr. Mark, maybe, although I'm not sure whether Mark is still away. I actually did send a note saying, "Are you still away?" And I haven't heard back, so perhaps he is still away. But we'll have Melissa from New York, and we'll try very hard to bring you the full range of your favourite people, all of whom have an opinion. And all of whom express it but in the nicest possible way while making a point. So until tomorrow, and it's a lovely day outside. Enjoy it. Enjoy the day. And that's what should we do? Yes. This one.